we can't affect the world around us by loving our child self, right? But we can affect our relationship with the outside world by loving our child self.
Hi everyone, I'm Lily Cornell Silver and welcome to Mind Wide Open, my mental health focused interview series. Today I am talking to Frankie Jonas, who's using his platform in many amazing ways, including for mental health advocacy. And today we're going to talk about his TikTok, Frankie Jonas Therapist, how he has coped in his darkest times, and what it means to be vulnerable. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoy. Hi Frankie, thank you so much for being here.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is awesome.
You have a fantastic TikTok account. Your main TikTok account is amazing, but Frankie Jonas Therapist is Frankie Jonas space therapist.
Yeah. I can change it as of today, actually.
Really? Today's the day.
Today's the day.
But Frankie Jonas Therapist, it's an amazing TikTok account where you talk about your own mental health, but you also answer questions from people that are struggling with their mental health. What inspired you to start that account?
So I had a separate account. I have many accounts called Frankie Jonas Songwriter, where it was like a spam account and someone asked me to sing them a song for their birthday. And then people just started asking me to sing songs for them. And so I started doing that. And then I made one video, which was like a song about mental health. And someone said I should make an account called Frankie Jonas Therapist. And I adored the idea. I made the account and pretty quickly people were into it. I mean, it was, I just wanted to create a space where, because mental health is something that's very important to me, and I've had my own recovery journey that I'm still on, and I wanted to create a space where I could talk to people and sort of express my experience, right? Because it was other people's experience that helped me to find my peace and my growth in so many ways. Vulnerability affects other people's vulnerability so much. And so wanted to create that space.
Completely. That's beautiful. I mean, and that's what this series has definitely been for me, is realizing, I mean, that taking that first step to be vulnerable, like on a social platform, was super freaky. But once I did it, I realized so many people respond to that vulnerability with their own vulnerability. And like, you never know when you present your experience, how that's going to affect other people.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I think, it's just to create a space, you have to be the first one to take the step forward, I think. So,
right.
Yeah.
What made you feel comfortable taking that step?
I lived in the shadows of my own like demons for so long and tried to hide from everything, especially the public eye, and especially being my honest self in the public eye. And this TikTok extravaganza that has flourished in the past few months. It came out of me sort of being my honest self, and it came out of me just being who I am without any like opposition of my own mentality.
Right.
And that made me sort of feel like I could be myself publicly, and it could be who I am. And I'm someone who, if you get to know me outside of an online space, I'm very quick to open up, because I think that creates, I think people, it sometimes bothers people how open I can be about my experience, but because I expect the best in people, and I hope that they bring that same level of vulnerability and because that's how we can communicate and connect empathically as humans.
Absolutely.
Going into that TikTok, it was once again like no one was watching at the time when I started it, and now that account has like 250,000 followers or something crazy. So a lot more people were following it now. And each video that I talk about like my experience with mental health gets like 50, 60,000 views, and it's a bit overwhelming. But I just felt like, I knew when I started it that if I was helped by people who were willing to help me, and if I now can be that for other people, even if I don't want to be someone who like expresses all my advice and pushes my will onto others.
Right.
But I make note to try and express it from my perspective and my experience. And hopefully it helped people.
Absolutely. No, and that's huge. And I think that's one of, in doing this series and getting into mental health advocacy, I've learned that I feel like one of the main things that causes mental health stigmatization is people think you can only talk about mental health if you're a licensed professional. And so being able to share your like that, and that's been kind of a weird pushback I've gotten just on the series, is like, what makes you qualified to talk about mental health? I'm like, I have a brain, like I struggle with mental health, I'm not, and exactly the same. Like, I'm not trying to give people clinical advice, but just being open about your own experience is such a huge thing.
Absolutely. I think, there are so many layers of, say, like a mental health degree, right? And qualifications, and you have experience in a subject, you have a voice in it in some capacity.
Absolutely. And that, the advice that you give, because I'm totally the same way. I'm like hyper open about vulnerable about my experiences. But the Frankie Jonas Therapist account reminds me so much of like my friends and I, and the way we talk to each other and share advice with each other. But sometimes it can be so much easier to tell your friends what to do than to take the advice that you're giving. Is that something you struggle with?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I have this like encyclopedic knowledge of DBT and different therapy techniques. And I get in a situation where I have to use it. I'm like, maybe not
I'm
today.
always telling my friends, I'm like, just do some tapping. Just
tapping, finger breathing. You got
Do you feel like your knowledge, like, are you able to regurgitate information that you've learned in therapy, or is it more from personal experience, or is it both?
I think it's
combination.
I think it's a combination of both. I've had a very complex journey of therapy and therapy techniques and whatnot, and all within the past 2 years, if I'm being perfectly honest. And although they were all intensive, and so that's why it's so intensive, my experience with it. And I think the biggest, I guess, attribute to my perception of it and my experience with it is that, I really, like 2 years ago, I had to remake my life and had to restart from scratch, essentially. And taking these techniques and applying them and relearning things, and really getting to a place where I am changing the fundamental connections of my synapses to reconfigure the world.
Right.
And I think having that experience was important for me to be able to have the voice that I feel like I do now.
Absolutely. And that changing of like your synapses, and there's another word that my neurofeedback lady always says to me, but retraining your brain. And especially when you've dealt with things that are traumatic, like your brain stores that, and that's going to be your response. Even if you're not experiencing something traumatic, you're going to have a trauma response. So being able to have access to those modalities that change your brain is so huge. And something that I work a lot with in mental health advocacy is like, so many people don't have access to those kinds of modalities. So what's been most helpful to you? And do you have anything outside of therapy that keeps your mental health going?
I mean, self-care is so important. Just like that's for me. And I think honestly, the biggest part that I had to learn, that is the thing that I can do for myself, right? Especially when I'm like, for lack of a better term, like triggered or whatever else it is honestly just compassion. And it's such a hard thing to learn, especially for oneself. And I think that for me, being able to say like, as cringy in metaphor as it can be, to be able to like see that like 11-year-old kid, right? And in your head and try and have that conversation. Like if you're familiar with like parts work at all, and like being able to see the parts that are affecting this and creating that imaginary space, like psychodrama, literally, but no, seeing that and being able to, affect change in that situation. We can't affect the world around us by loving our child self, right? But we can affect our relationship with the outside world by loving our child self.
Parts integration. It's
Heyo.
such a real thing. It's such a real thing. And that, I mean, we've had, very different experiences, but relatively the same, just in that, like, I lost my dad very publicly to mental health and addiction issues, and having, my biggest trauma be something that made headlines before I was even able to process it. Like, that adds such a weird layer of the experience. And being someone who's always been very vulnerable, like, it kind of made me rear up a little bit to have that experience. Did having your mental health kind of make headlines, make you reticent to talk about it at all?
I think it definitely gave me pause because, when I went to treatment 2 years ago, I came up with an alias because I was terrified that my experience that would make headlines or something, or affect because my brothers were in the like pivotal moment of their, like, the second leg of their career together. Right. And I didn't want that to affect them. I was cognizant of it. Mm-hmm. And having this experience now where I'm just like talking, right? I'm just talking to people about my life and what has helped me and what has hurt me in a lot of ways. Having that reach the public space, it definitely was a moment of, oh my God, like, let's just take a second and breathe and really check in with ourselves. Like, right. Is this okay? Are we okay with this? And how can we address this in a way that we're honest with ourselves? And upon that addressing, just sort of realize that, like, if there is a space in which I can enjoy being publicly known for the troubles that I've experienced, at least it's on my terms.
Totally.
And at least I may be able to help people by saying, like, yeah, when I was 18, I got sober, like, and being able to say that. And I in no way want to be like a poster child, right?
Right.
But I do want to be an advocate.
Totally. And to be able to share your own experiences and what you said about it being on your own terms is such a huge thing. Because I think anyone who's dealt with mental health issues, with addiction, if that's something that they're forced to deal with or forced to make public before they're ready, like, that's when the advocacy isn't going to be helpful to anyone, including yourself.
100%. Yeah.
Do you ever deal with imposter syndrome? Because I feel that come up for me very often. And, like, maybe I am, like, I'm not the person that should be talking about this. Like, why do I have a plan? I don't know. Is that something you deal with ever?
Oh my God, absolutely. I have imposter syndrome in, like, every day of my life. Like, everything I do, I feel like I'm, like, the wrong person to do it. But no, with this, especially in this field, like, before I went down this path, like, I spent years sort of in a way, like, I was so trapped in my cyclical mentality, right? That was, like, perpetuating my traumatic experiences, and so locked in that. And so, and really in a self-preservatory, like, nature, I, like, mocked mental health, and I couldn't accept it as something that I needed. And I thought, if I needed it, I would be weak. Right.
Right.
And I think that looking back now, I can feel guilt and shame for having those mentalities and having those stipulations, and feeling like I may have strayed other people away or made them feel, like I said, like, weak for asking for help. And I think now I can feel that shame, but I can also know that, like, I was hurting and I couldn't understand what my words or what my actions meant for me too.
What was the moment, just in, like, I have a lot of family members, my dad included, that have dealt with addiction, dealt with mental health issues. And what, is there a moment you can point to that was like, okay, I've now reached this place and I need to change, like, something has to change?
I struggled with self-harm growing up, and a lot of suicidal ideations and a few attempts, but nothing that, like, ever came to light, right? Even within my circles and my family, like, no one really knew. And then when I was 18, I just I had like tried everything to try and be happy, and I was really struggling with addiction and didn't know it. And I just came to a place where, you know, I was planning on like really, I had like the conviction, right, to just end it. And I just collapsed on the ground, in fetal position. Like, I'm not one to cry, but like I was sobbing. And that was like a moment of like, oh my God, I need help. Like and there's other people who were willing to help me and be there for me. And it changed my entire life. I'm alive today because I was able to break through that facade and stop lying for 30 seconds.
Right. It can be such a universal experience to really struggle to ask for help. Because I mean, everyone deals with mental health in some capacity in their way. And I think we've been so conditioned to be like, you need to deal with this on your own. And if you're strong, that means you can handle it. Is there something you would say to people who are struggling to ask for help and be honest about how they're feeling? I
think asking for help is the most difficult and most like, honestly, like in a lot of cases for myself, like I feel shame about asking for help. I feel shame for coming to someone and saying, please, like I feel alone and I need assistance. Right. But simultaneous to that, there is a reason that it feels that way. Usually the things that are the most powerful and the most impossible tasks to accomplish are the ones that make us feel the worst. In a lot of cases, the advice that I've been given through my experience, the ones that like make me choke on my own spit at the thought of even doing that, those are the things that have like helped me in my life.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. And to ask for help, it is the strongest thing someone can do, to say, like, to accept the humbling moment of, I cannot do this myself. And like, and in time, those moments usually turn to like the most beautiful and most powerful changes. It just takes that moment of acceptance, and I like to think of desperation as a positive thing, because it is the precipice of change. And like, so in those situations, there is a beautiful desperation that, like, if you have it and you are willing to accept it and accept that, like, you can't do this alone, you will be rewarded in full by yourself, however many days, however many months away from now.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And that desperation, that's such a beautiful way of putting it. Because I feel like in that sense, desperation can be honoring the truest part of yourself. And that, like, sometimes it takes desperation to get there, to that honoring place. 100%.
No, it takes, it takes a cognitive amount of self-love that is like unimaginable to most people, to be able to say, like, I can't do this alone. But that love transmutes and transforms not only the balance that is created by it, but like the self that is asking for it.
And we talked a little bit about self-care, but are there things that you do on a day-to-day basis now to keep yourself in that place of like vulnerability and being true to yourself and maintaining health and wellness?
I have like a support system of people that like I talk to on a regular basis, and
cool.
And I also like, I like baths. I like baths. But I just being able to take those moments and breathe and get air. I have a puppy now, so that's pretty rocking. Although puppy blues are intense, and like, and those can get like overwhelming at times. But I think I just try and maintain a steady level of like cognizance about my body and like what's happening in it. When I'm, it's a weird one, but like when I'm stressed or anxious or whatever else, like I just like pound Altoids, because the sensation keeps me present.
Right. No, that's a thing because I've struggled so much with like detachment and dissociation. And that's one of the main things that my therapist has told me is like, it's okay for you to like eat candy.
Yeah.
Like you can take like cinnamon something or just like bring yourself back. But it is that like not when you have those big emotions, not allowing yourself to detach from them, being like, okay, I'm going to feel this, but also come back to myself and know that it's not permanent.
Walking, like bilateral stimulation, is such a great way to like just like re-inhabit my own space and is so important for my brain to like get the blood flow and get life working.
Totally.
Yeah.
On a similar note of positivity, what is something that is giving you hope right now?
It is so fucking beautiful to watch just the world start to like go back a bit right now. Mm-hmm. And like we've seen like the most primordial exhale of the human race. Like, and it's awesome to watch. My brother and sister got fully vaccinated the other day. Like, rock on,
right?
You know, rock on. I'm gonna get fully vaccinated in like 2 weeks, and like, it's so exciting. It's like, and thinking about the potential that like, you know, we endure. We're alive, and we're moving forward. And as challenges come and we face them, like, we may not win every battle, but the ones that we get to watch us win, that is the appreciation right there. That is the thing that like is so powerful.
Thank you so much for being here, Frankie. It was so awesome to hear your perspective and all the beautiful things you have to say. And I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for having, like, I love what you're doing on this podcast, and I'm so grateful to have been invited on here. If you ever want me back, I will gladly come back. This is awesome. You're fantastic. This is so cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Frankie. If you like this episode, please subscribe in Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a review.